Hey everyone, my name is Kevin McLaughlin and I will be moderating today's session on audiobooks and how to make them and what they are and how to make use of them. Today we've got a star-studded panel of awesome people, so I'm going to let everyone come around and introduce themselves. Victoria, would you be first, please?
Is that your grandfather clock dinging?
Apparently, yes.
Okay, so Kevin's obviously an author because our esteemed narrators would not have grandfather clocks in their booths. That's really funny. That could get to conversation about like background noise. I am the publisher at Podium Audio. I also handle acquisitions, and a lot of authors know me from being the author rep. So those are the hats that I wear.
Okay, Christopher?
Hi, my name is Christopher Hopper, a science fiction author specializing in blowing things up and giving people a good time. So I'm also a friend of, which way is she? That way. No, I'm a friend of hers. This guy, I know, he's awesome. Heather, I've always wanted to meet you. I can't get my directions right. And Kevin, nice to meet you.
Heather, how about you introduce yourself for us?
Well, it's wonderful to meet you, Christopher.
Sure.
I'm an audiobook narrator. I do a lot of sci-fi and fantasy, and I love the performing side of it, the acting side of it, and bringing the author's words to life and telling the stories.
Excellent. Jeffrey?
Hi, I am a LA-based narrator. I've done 700 some odd books, more than R.C. Bray. That's what matters.
It didn't take long.
No,
2 minutes into
gotta
it.
get right
2
to the
minutes
meat
into
of
it.
it. I don't want to say I specialize in sci-fi, but I seem to get a lot of sci-fi, a lot of fantasy, and a good amount of romance. So here we are.
All right, noted. I'm already making notes of some new narrators I can get in touch with. My name's Kevin McLaughlin. I also write science fiction and fantasy both. I've got a bunch of stuff. I've got some books up through Podium in audio. Tantor has picked up a lot of my stuff from LMBPN for audio, and I've also done a little bit of my own. I know, daring, huh? Despite the grandfather clocks, because I'm not at home right now. All right. So right now, audiobooks are one of the fastest growing markets for books in general. We all know that. So what everybody's wondering really is, how are we going to get into it? How do we take advantage of this thing, I think? Does anyone want to talk about the different methods that authors can use to get audiobooks to publication? What's worked for you? What have you done? What have you helped authors do?
So I'm happy to take at least the publisher stab at this. So I see probably maybe two or three routes to publication in audio. The first being engaging with a publisher like us at Podium and signing a license for audio rights. So you would license your rights for a period of time, and Podium or other publishers would take on all the expenses of production and then put the audiobook into the market with effective marketing, and then pay you, the author, a royalty based on sales. I mean, that's like the fundamental like publisher agreement. Then there is the well-known route of going through ACX or Findaway Voices directly as an author, which you can do on a couple of different bases, right? You can either do paid per finished hour, so you can pay a narrator for their services, and then you, as the author, maintain the rights. You own the rights to the production, and then you would put it on a platform, whether that's via Findaway or Audible through ACX, and you would receive all the royalties. Or there's royalty share. And maybe Jeffrey, you want to talk about how that works?
Means we make your book together. It sells a lot. We both make a lot of money. to dive down a little bit, so I'm more of a fan of the Royalty Share Plus, where the narrator gets paid a little bit of money to cover their post-production costs, because it's a big ask to have the narrator pay their post-production, which runs upwards of $75 per finished hour. So at least helping the narrator split those costs. So for those who don't know, I sort of jumped ahead. There's the royalty share, where it's no cost to the author, and you split the royalties 50-50. So 60% goes to Audible, 20% goes to the author, and 20% goes to the narrator. However, the narrator has certain expenses of not only their time, but the post-production. We have to have it edited and proofed and mastered, and there's, hard costs involved with that. So the new thing is the Royalty Share Plus, where you split the royalties 50-50, and then the author also gives the narrator $50 per finished hour, 75, whatever you agree on, to cover post-production costs. And there's any number of ways you can negotiate that. You can split the production costs. You can pay it outright. A lot of narrators won't even consider royalty share without an extra little, bump in pay, because, time.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's on you, the author, to do the promotion of it. So that's where signing with someone like Podium may be beneficial, in that they have a marketing machine behind them. And they have they're a name brand at this point in most, the genres that we're worried about here. So they do a lot of the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah.
Speaking, sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, and that investment and the risk involved is why a publisher's royalty is going to be less than the 20% that you would share, maybe if you did royalty share. It's just yes, the author spent time on writing the book and marketing and making it successful, but the 100% of the risk and the investment is borne by the publisher. So the share is generally going to be less than that.
Speaking from the author side of things, I've been pretty happy with the experiences with both Podium and Tantor. Like Podium, I actually work with Victoria specifically on Valhalla Online stuff. And then Tantor keeps on picking up everything that I write for LMPPN. So every couple of months, I'll get a message from somebody over on LMPPN side saying, "Oh yeah, you're getting an extra, X amount of money this month in your check from us, because Tantor picked up the first 3 books in this series. You're getting advances for it." I'm like, cool, free money. I like this. But both of those companies have been excellent in my experience. I have zero complaints with either of them.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's definitely there is definitely a rush into the market, and maybe this is a transition to sort of what's happening in the market, which is that I think there's a lot of demand for new content, and there's a lot being pushed into the market, which means very busy narrators. Mm-hmm. Right, which is great news for Heather and Jeffrey.
Thank you very much for that.
Are you finding yourselves really, really booked out?
Heather, you're a little more booked out than I am. What are you booked out?
Yeah, I'm booked till September.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah, and funny enough, when the rest of the world kind of shut down in 2020, I was the busiest I've ever been. So I think that, thankfully this was one of those industries that led to, having stability during a crazy time. So that was pretty great.
It was pretty COVID proof.
Yeah. And we're safe in our box.
Yes, you're working from home anyway, so whatever.
Best mask ever.
No, that's terrific. Having that sort of job security of being booked out for months in advance that's got to be an awesome feeling. Chris, what are your audiobooks? Who have you been working with to get them out right now?
Most recently is Podium Audio, which I too have been thrilled with, and has been, I think, a mutually beneficial relationship. I a little bit sounds like you, Kevin. I actually have experience kind of across the board with lots of different ventures into this, beginning back over 10 years ago when I had a contract with HarperCollins, and they actually ended up outsourcing the audio to another publisher who specialized in audio only. So had a few books come out that route. Learned a lot in that time, enough that let's say I wanted to explore other options. And so by the time I had written another, I think it was my 7th book at the time, I went ACX, did the author 50-50 split. That worked out really well. Enjoyed the process, and my background is in professional audio, so I at least had, I could speak the parlance and nomenclature and knew what I was talking about. So that made it a little easier for me than maybe some authors not familiar with audio production. And then I took a break from writing for several years and jumped into it full time in 2019 with Jeff Chaney and Variant, and that's how I met Victoria. Actually, funny story, and I think we talked about this somewhere, but I was ready before I had signed with Jeff and was co-writing. I was going to head to Vegas for 20 books, and I heard that this incredible lady, Victoria Gherkin, who is the gatekeeper of all gatekeepers, was going to be there, and I had my 20-second elevator pitch ready. When I met her, I was going to stalk her on the convention floor and just, here I am, listen to me or not. And little did I know that we would end up signing a wonderful agreement and have since had Ruins of the Galaxy and now Ruins of the Earth come out. But Victoria, I was really nervous. I was super nervous to meet you. So
you should be.
I know, I'm a frightening person.
You should be careful stalking her in conferences. I hear she carries a knife.
Now you tell me, Jeffrey. Thank you.
Throwing stars.
I haven't listened to any of your books yet, Chris, but I've read them, and the stuff you're writing with Jeff is amazing. So good job.
Thank you. Well, the guy who narrates them is this guy, R.C. Bray, and he's phenomenal.
I've heard he's really good. He's one of the best,
Bray,
I guess.
yeah.
Never heard of it.
He's done more science fiction than like anybody else, right?
Anyone else, yeah. I hear that other voice actors want to be him, but I can't confirm that.
He's leaving. Although I will say one of my favorite parts of Christopher's latest is the author note. And so just if anybody hasn't listened to Ruins of the Earth, don't just like fast forward to the end. Just listen to the author note. And I guess that's kind of one of those marketing tips that I sometimes give, is just the added content that you might put in your ebooks. Like, don't forget about that for audio, because and I think your note was really, you're a sound guy, so it was extra sound effects, music, you've got to listen to this thing. It's crazy. But other authors have told me that and Sean Inman is an example of this. His author notes are very personal, and he includes, it's something that fans have now come to expect. Another great author that we published, J.A. Huss, she consistently does them. She calls them her end of book shit. And she just, fans love them, and they really connect to the author. So yes, you've had a book, and you've listened to a book narrated by a fantastic narrator who's brought the characters to life, and then at the end of it you hear the author's voice. And Sean has told me he hears from fans. He's grown his fan base from the audiobooks, like expanding his fan base, not just from readers. So that would be something to contemplate. So,
along those lines, you've in a couple of books you've included, when Bray does a book, he includes bloopers at the end, or is that in the book, or is that just something that you post on social?
We've included them in the books as well. Yeah, but it does give really, really good social content. We find that video content or audio, like an animated cover, but with some audio content. 30 seconds, probably not longer than 30 seconds, is really effective with Facebook ads and getting clicks. So yeah, where we have narrators that are game for doing, and often, and he will actually, and other narrators have done this too. Jonathan McLean has done this actually with a book that the author specifically wrote a chapter of like all tongue twisters. It was in like book 3 or 4 of the series, and they were kind of
Brutal.
getting a vibe, brutal, super brutal. So
That's brutal.
So that was good, and he actually edited those together. So we will do some editing and creating of those that bonus content. But having a narrator deliver those is fantastic.
Are you having the author narrate the author notes section, or are you having the narrator who did the rest of the book to it?
The author narrates the author note. Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
that's
it's with that kind, and we don't really have. It doesn't. A lot of those author notes don't make sense if they're narrated. I mean, it's just not as good content.
No,
So
I agree. I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Michael Anderle actually did them all for the Anima series that we did. He did author notes for all of those. So
That's cool.
So I haven't done the hire a narrator part yet. I probably will at some point, but I haven't done it yet. I have started doing some of my own narration. It's been a difficult road, but I'm interested in doing it as much as anything else because of things like the book funnel. The book funnel's ability to give away shorts, to develop an email list for for audiobooks and stuff. Everybody's aware of that, or no?
I am, but you're
Book Funnel, which is a wonderful service, has one of their things that they do is they will let you upload short audio, and I think it's actually longer now as well. But it started off with just short audio, and the idea being you can either sell these things, or more importantly, you can use them as to build an email list of people who love audiobooks. So that way you can sell the audio, you can sell more audio on Audible and what have you. Any thoughts about authors who want to try and get into this themselves? I don't want to talk on the whole thing. You guys have more narration experience than me anyway.
Well, I would like to take on something so that Jeffrey and Heather don't have to, because I think I know what they might say. And this is from some of my own experience with attempting to narrate my own work, which is I think a lot of, and this is not at you, Kevin, I don't know you from this moment, but I do encounter a lot of authors who just say, well, I'm just going to read my own book. I'm like, damn, do you know how hard that is? Because this is not simply reading text, or even reading text with inflection, or even being enthusiastic, or reading bedtime stories to your kids. Like, it is acting. It is as much an art form as it is novel writing. And most of the I'd say 99% of the samples that I hear, I even did this. I sent my own performance to R.C. Bray before I knew him for coaching. Like, who does? I'm an idiot. Anyway, it's really hard. Like, and so you just start to recognize. I started to look at the ROI on it. I'm like, there's just no way. Like, I would rather pay the freight for a professional who nails this every time than butcher myself in the process. So anyway, I just want to jump in, throw that out there, and I'll shut up.
No, I mean, you're right. There's a certain economy of time. Where's your time better spent? Babbling into a microphone, or working on writing your next book, which is going to generate even more income?
Yeah.
For me, the reason why I haven't jumped into it in much more depth, and understand too, I'm coming at this from a background of over a decade of theater experience. So acting is not new to me at all, but learning how to do this type of it is actually a really big leap, even with that sort of experience. What you were just saying about the ROI is right on target, because I earn more writing for an hour than it costs per finished hour for a narrator. So I'm actually losing money by narrating my own books.
Sounds like a great plan.
Well, I'm just learning how to do it. I'm not going to do it all the time. I want to hire people for the big stuff.
You might notice that I excel at sarcasm-based books. So throw that into the mix. No, but whenever I hear an author who's thinking about doing it, my first question to them is, why? Why do you want to narrate your own book?
Mm.
And usually the answer is, well, because I'm closer to these characters. I know them better than anybody else, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, have you succeeded then as an author if you're the only one who actually understands these characters?
Ooh,
And
snap.
that's a hard pill to swallow, right? That's tough. I get it. It's not meant to be insulting, but the point is, when they release it out, when an author releases their book on Kindle, they're not following behind the reader going, okay, this character here has a Scottish accent. I envision this, my muse for this one is Liam Hemsworth. You have to let the baby go when you have your Kindle readers and let them form their own opinion and let them interpret your art in their own way. And that's kind of the way you have to do it with audiobooks as well. Let the narrator take your art and interpret it in their way. And a lot of authors find, wow, that's something new. The narrator brought something that I never anticipated, but I really like it.
I've had that happen a couple of times at least. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I think that's not unusual at all.
Yeah, I want to bottle that, Jeffrey, and I want to send it out as a gift to our authors, because it's a hard transition to make. It's a hard thing to let go when and especially with our indie authors who control so much of the process. They have controlled everything up until this point, and then the voice actor gets to control some of it. Obviously, your cues are taken from the text, which the author still controls, but that difference between their expectation and the reality of the performance, I would say most of the time, it's delight. It's, oh my God, I don't even recognize this. You've transformed it. It's amazing. We love it. But there are occasions that it's, a bit of a shock, and it's then like holding the hand of the author and saying, this is a experienced performer. We know the market. You've got a market of listeners who love the voice of this narrator, and to have faith that they are going to love the performance of the audiobook.
That's something that I think that people sometimes underestimate, is that I think a lot of authors are not aware that audiobook narrators have their own fan groups. Like there's that R.C. Gray guy who I guess has a really big fan group from what I was hearing. But seriously, Jeff, what are your experiences in terms of building your own fan groups?
Excuse me. I think that one thing I wanted to just comment on what Victoria was saying first, and then I'd be happy to answer that, is when an author is giving their baby out to the narrator to perform, there is a collaboration in the beginning of that, notes from the author or feedback or direction on what they hear. And there's some, hey, here's a sample of it, and what do you think, and how do you hear this? And then kind of once that initial conversation happens, that initial sample, then it's like, okay, now we're going to go and you're going to trust the narrator to perform it. But there is, they're not just taking it and running with it.
Yeah. It's in the preparation. And absolutely, exactly. We have a whole process of gathering notes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I encourage, when I'm working ACX, I encourage authors to give me as much pre-direction as possible. Give me your notes. Give me your list of muses. Give me whatever it is you think will help realize your vision better. Because at the end of the day, it is the author's vision. And I will do my best to use those as a guide. And once I submit the first 15, I'm open to more feedback. Like, okay, and we can go back and forth and we can finally nail it. But once that first 15 on ACX is approved, that's where the author has to let go and let me do my job, because I've heard a lot of horror stories where a narrator doesn't have that conversation, sort of those ground rules up front. And at the end, they get a spreadsheet of direction. And that's very problematic for a narrator. One, because it takes forever to fix all that stuff. And when you punch it in, it doesn't quite sound the same as when
Right.
you're doing it in the moment. So it ends up looking and sounding like a bad patchwork quilt. So I encourage collaboration in the beginning, as Heather said.
Absolutely.
Once we're rolling, let the baby go.
Sorry. So, Kevin, your question.
Yeah.
As far as fan base of listeners, I think it depends on. There's different people that I'll find that will follow just anything. If they know a narrator, they follow whatever they read. And others will listen for specific types of books. Like, there's people that will follow you for romance or follow you for sci-fi or, fantasy, depending on what they're interested in. And then, of course, the big sellers, you find people following you because they're so enamored by the author and by the success of that book. And then from that, you get other authors and other listeners that are, wow, I want that narrator, how she did it in that book. And then it kind of spins off from that, which is really cool. And then it just kind of grows. And so it's not necessarily something you seek out. It just kind of organically happens.
You had that happen with Crave, yes?
Yeah. Yep. And when books are picked up by the movie rights are purchased, that's also a huge draw, because that's, that'll be all over. And whether or not it ever happens, just that alone becomes a really cool talking point, and people get drawn to that, and it leads to more connections and more listeners.
Cool. Now, my impression from talking to a lot of authors is that one of the reasons why they're interested in doing it themselves, and one of the biggest barriers for hiring someone, is actually the expense, the cost. Are there thoughts about ways that can be mitigated? Are there thoughts about ways that authors can? I know that people have tried crowdfunding. There's the royalty splits. There's some other stuff. But what have you guys seen that has worked best for people who really want their stuff in audio and just don't even know how to start?
Jeff?
Well, okay, so let's talk about the cost. I'm not okay. So let's say somebody's 10-hour book costs $350 a finished hour. That's a decent union rate, so that's $3,500. I'm doing math here. And they're going to make about $4.50 a unit. They have to sell 777 copies in audio to break even. After that, they're going to make $450, which is far more per unit than they're going to make in any other platform, right? So 700 copies is really not a lot in the world of books. My thought is, and this is another tough nut to swallow, and I'm sort of known for being blunt, maybe you're not ready to be in audio.
I was just about to say that. I was about to deliver the hard pill too.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mathematical and an economic decision. How well is your book doing? How much of a market have you created for your story in ebook? And if you've got, and how many people do you have on your newsletter list? How many people are fans of yours right now in your current existence as an author? And if that answer is, like, to Jeffrey's point, it's over 1,000 people that you can dial up and say, hey, I've got an audiobook and here's the link to it. And half of them, or even a quarter of them, 250 people are going to say, oh my God, how exciting, I'm going to get that. Then you're good.
Yeah.
But I think, otherwise it's pretty risky. So my advice would be keep growing your audience, grow your audience. And maybe your first series is not going to be in audio right now. And we've gone back, we've picked up series that authors have done, that of their second series maybe, and then we've gone back, and because that's been a success, then we've gone back to do the first series because there's now a market for it.
Mm-hmm.
But we've led with the more popular, the second, authors are learning, you're figuring stuff out. Maybe your second series is going to work better than your first series.
Also, sometimes timing the audio release with either the release of it in print or audio of a previous newer series with the release of a new book series in print. So they kind of feed off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
We see success authors doing that as well. Or a book bub comes out and you time, there's ways where you're getting attention in one way and you can, hey, while I have your attention, here's this in audio. And then the sales blow up from that.
Yeah,
The
it's something
book
that
bub.
I've noticed too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, I was to say the book bub thing that she mentioned right there is I've noticed that from the royalty share titles where I know the sales, anytime an author gets a book bub, even giving their book away, you're going to notice a spike of several hundred copies in audio of that day. Because the audiobook listeners want their book in their preferred format. I have not sat down with my Kindle and read an actual book in years, but I listen to audiobooks when I'm in the garden, when I'm working out, when I'm driving. So those of us who listen to audiobooks, we don't care if it's free on Kindle. As long as our attention is drawn to this interesting book, I'll burn a credit, even if it's free. So never underestimate the power of just I tell people this: just advertise your book. You don't need to advertise the platform of the book. You wouldn't put out a press release for Kobo. You just release the book and get eyeballs to your Amazon listing, and people will choose the format of choice that they want.
Yeah, absolutely.
But one thing that authors can do that I've noticed is do a little bit of focused promotion toward audiobook listeners. Like my list right now, I have a list of about 18,000 subscribers right now on my email list, and almost none of them listen to audiobooks. So I can advertise a new audiobook release and get like 20 sales, and I'll be like, oh, that was nice. But because I haven't really pushed audio, because I haven't focused on building an audio audience on that list, it's not a very effective promotional tool. But that is something we can change. Like I said, I want to try and do the book funnel thing and try and build some audio that way. Craig Martell has done a good job with that. He's seen some real success that way. And I think that that's something that we can do. And even if it's a matter of just take a short story, hire a narrator to do it for you, and then put it up as a reader magnet, I think that stuff like that can work.
Audiobook listeners love their audio. If they're commuters, they'll go through multiple books a week, and they just, they're just ferocious about it. So I'm sorry, I cut somebody off. My apologies.
I was going to just tack an addendum onto this whole, maybe you're not ready for audio, which the next sentence is, because your best time as an author, as a writer, is spent in storycraft, is writing a great book. And I feel like I'm a testimony of that in a certain aspect, because I had, and this is one of those things where people are like, wow, you're such an overnight success. And you're like, not really. Let's talk about history. And to recognize, that I've been writing for 15 years now. And my first 8 books, they have people that enjoyed them, but there's a lot of aspects around them where they really sucked. And I don't want somebody like her going back to my back catalog, because they don't deserve to be put into audio, in my opinion. Now, she might have a different opinion, but I don't think they do. And they're not on brand anymore. They're not really for the market. But what I did from those was learn how to be a better writer. Yeah. And so it's almost as if I had to burn 7 novels across 2.5 series to finally figure out, oh, this is how I write a good book. And even then, it was a rocky start. And every book, I want to be better personally. And the further I can push the ball down the field in that regard, the better I feel like those stories are going to fall into the hands of gifted voiceover artists to turn them into gold. And I think that's another big point, is even the world's greatest voiceover artist cannot fix a broken story. And so our job as authors is to create characters and stories that have intrinsic integrity, and that therefore make their lives so much easier. Sometimes I'll be listening to somebody and I'm thinking, oh, this poor narrator, this is killing them. Like they're doing this for the paycheck, and maybe they didn't read far enough in to go, oh God, this is a train wreck, but I committed. I don't know how you guys handle that when you're halfway through. I can't do it. But anyway, all that to say, I think we owe it to the world, to ourselves, and to those people we work with to create beautiful stories worth reading. So just my 2 cents.
Well, the good books read themselves. I mean, that's where you seriously, you get in the booth and you're like, wow, I just got through an hour and a half, 2 hours of finished audio, and I forgot to walk out, and books that are a little more challenging, you're like, okay, we got 20 minutes. Good job. So there is truth to that. But, fortunately, most are good. And when you're drawn in, it makes the performance so much better, because when you're feeling the chills and you're feeling the emotion and you're getting caught up and you're tearing up, it's great writing, and it comes out in the performance.
Yeah, I agree that a narrator can't fix a book that's having too many problems on its own. But I'll tell you, one of my favorite things from having my books narrated by somebody else is when I listen to them and something delights me. When something surprises me in a delightful way, and I'm just like, oh, wow, that was really cool. And if I'm hearing that, then I know my readers are going to. And I like that a lot.
Jeffrey, Heather, I'm curious, have you lost it in a book before? Have you just I don't know,
laughing?
well, both had to captured enough that you're like, okay, we got this, and then hit mute or hit stop because you're like, I gotta take a break. I'm curious.
Yeah. I do know there's the occasional romance, for example. Well-written romance is amazing. But sometimes if it's like, whose fantasy is this? And you get through it and you're like, that was so ridiculous, and you're laughing so hard. That would never happen. But like I said, good romance is wonderful. But yeah, I don't know, Jeff, you want to speak to that?
Since we're on the romance thing, yeah, there's some. After
I have
some
a
of the
follow-up.
scenes, you're like, I got open the door, hotter and shit in here. I don't know why. Hoo-wee. Okay. All right. Okay.
I don't know that I can narrate some romances I've read.
Romance is actually a lot of fun to narrate.
It is, yeah.
Especially the rom-com. You get to do all the witty banter. But this is a sci-fi fantasy panel.
Well, but can I ask a follow-up on this? Because I know I think this is something you and Heather do, Jeffrey, is duet. Can we talk a little bit about duet and the mechanics of that? Because I think that is an increasingly popular listening format that we have been engaged. We've been engaging narrators and doing duets. So would you give
So do you mean dual or actual duet?
No, I mean actual duet. And maybe explain the difference.
So dual is where I would be in my booth reading by myself, reading my chapter from the male POV, including all the female dialogue. Duet is where Heather comes from next door, hops in my booth,
fun,
and we record together in the booth.
Whoa.
Do you do this? Do you have pen names that you do your romance under, your duets? So you do them?
Nope.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go.
We are who we are.
Yeah,
we have a website. It's what is it? romanceaudiobooknarrator.com. It's all about our dual and duet narration. So
we do a lot of dual, where it's the male and female point of view, and some duet. But duet is not as popular yet, but it's really fun to perform, and I think it's growing. It's just
it's a little cost prohibitive at this point because you have to pay us. It's basically double the narrator fee because we have to be here the whole time as opposed to just getting paid for our chapters.
When it's dual, it doesn't cost it doesn't cost the author any more because they pay my female and Jeff his male chapters.
So duet might be something you would reserve for like a bigger book or a book that you expected to really do super, super well. Something like that.
Yeah, because it's a smarter investment.
Well, and it's also why a book could do well. So the format of narration kind of has to fit the content.
Yes.
So with certain genres and with rom-coms, I think there can be definitely a call for making that extra investment in how the performance is going to be delivered. I definitely we definitely take more of a format approach than is this going to be a big book, therefore we do duet, because that doesn't really track. Like clearly our biggest book's a single narration. But for Harem, which kind of gets into SFFCon, can we? This is on track. That duet format is really what the listeners demand.
We love it because you play off of each other, and it brings an energy that, as much as I love solo narration, when you're performing with somebody, it's amazing. It's amazing to do. It's amazing to listen to, and it brings a whole element to life that you don't necessarily hear with one narrator.
Yeah, I have some science fiction romance. I could see that being really great for.
Well, then who to hire.
Yeah, exactly. So I have ideas now.
Maybe your website should actually be not specifically romance narrators. Maybe you're cutting yourself off from. Sorry. Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. No, you're right.
You've limited yourself.
On point branding. Don't put myself in a box. You're right. I mean, besides this one.
So we're heading toward the end here. We do have one question from the audience, and that one's really for Victoria. We had somebody ask, how would an author attract or get a meeting with Podium?
Oh, that's a very flattering only question from the audience. So we have a website, podiumaudio.com. We have a contact us form if you're an author, contact us form if you're a narrator. And I would just suggest that you send us, what it is that you want to talk to us about. We will, and if you've already got a book on sale, then please share a link. We'll take a look and let you know if it's something that we think, we can partner with you on, or if it's something that isn't selling at quite the level that we think we can be successful in audio. So it's as simple as that.
And sacks of cash.
Sacks of cash, exactly. Wheelbarrows of Krugerrands.
And Victoria does not bite, folks. She's really, really easy to work with. So give it a shot. The worst thing that can happen is they'll say, not yet. Maybe next time.
Yeah.
Anybody else from the audience who has any questions? Now would be a really good time to put them into the comment section, and we'll be happy to answer them. If not, does anybody else have any major topics that they wanted to hit while we were here? Don't all shout at once.
I guess one of certainly the question that I get asked a lot when I have those initial meetings with authors to talk about what Podium can offer is generally the most asked question is, what are you going to do to market my audiobook? That is, I would say, the big one. And it's also the one that's the trickiest to answer because it can be very nebulous. So I guess that's what I would like to address, because I suspect authors listening would be asking that question. And I really think the selection of the narrator and the casting of the narrator is the fundamental piece of how we market the audiobook. Like, that is the answer, really. That's the foundation of what will make an audiobook sell, which is what marketing is. So casting is done by we have a casting team. We have a fabulous casting director who has cast Jeffrey and Heather on many a title, and titles that are right for them. And have you, I guess, a follow-up to that question I have for Jeffrey and Heather is, have you ever been miscast on something? No, you don't have to mention names, obviously.
If there's a Scottish accent and they want me to do it, I miscast.
In first person point of view, or the narrator is the.
In first person point of view, Scottish is my Achilles heel. I can say, well, I can go Outlander, and that's about it. That's the extent of my horrible Scottish accent.
That is a difficult one. I think that's a difficult one for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Love it.
Oh, I hate you. I hate you
great.
so
We're going
much
to have
right
Chris
now.
do our Scottish narration now.
I can hear it. I can't get my face to do it.
It's a hard one. Oh, it's so hard.
Well, I guess
We have
that's. Sorry, go on,
No,
Chris.
no. We have a character in Ruins of the Earth who's Russian, and I kind of whisper when I talk or when I type to make sure that what I'm typing sounds good. And I've actually kind of trained myself. I watched YouTube videos because I'm like, I don't sound like a Russian mobster in Manhattan right now. I don't know. I sound like something, not that. And just train myself as I was going along. And it's been a lot of fun to kind of acquire that. But yeah, anyway, that was a super random side comment.
I'm seeing a lot of romance with sort of a Russian brotherhood thing. Have you had to do Russian? Have you guys done the Russian thing?
We've had Russian characters. I don't know about
sure.
Russian romance. Is that what you mean specifically?
Yeah, like there's a sort of a Russian mafia subgenre. Yeah.
Good enough for government work.
There is.
There you go.
I have
I could
I have
totally
a
hear that
long
accent in
series
your book.
by Rick Brown, The Frontier Saga. I've been doing it for like 12 years. And yeah, he's got a main Russian character. My accents have improved a little bit. I'm still not a master of dialects like some narrators are, but they've gotten better. It's important for a narrator to know what they can do and what they can't do, really. You know, for me, fudging a Scottish accent is the worst. I just cannot do it.
We've got
and knowing that is okay. What's that?
Sorry, Jeff. We've got about 2 minutes left, and we have one. We have about 2 minutes left, and we have one more question in the question bar. I just want to make sure we get to that. That's all. That was what's the best example of a duet audiobook that you can recommend for authors to listen to? I'm curious about it, but extremely nervous. Does anybody? I haven't actually listened to one. Most of the stuff I listen to is single narrator. Does anybody else have one that they can recommend?
Yeah, so you have to go into the world of romance. I don't know of any sci-fi or fantasy that does this yet. Listen to anything with Sebastian York and Elena Wolf. They did one, I think it was The Marriage Games was duet.
We have a bunch of harem authors, which is obviously, it's not romance, but there are sexy times. So if the thing that is making this person nervous is the content, then don't do it. But if you're open to things men and women and men and other women and other men do, then Dante King is one of our big harem authors, and so look for Dante as in the Inferno and King as in Words of Crown, and virtually all of his recent releases are duet.
I think I just got my next pen name. Inferno Crown.
There you go. All right, folks, thank you all very much for coming. This has been a delightful session, and it sounds from the comments that people got some good information out of it.
Great.
So thank you all for being here, and I hope everybody who's watching this will enjoy the rest of SFFCon, and have a great day.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.